If you're not familiar with taking an edible, it's pretty simple. You ingest the edible, and then you wait, anywhere from like an hour and a half to the rest of your life for your most toxic memories to just like drop kick you in the back of your throat and send you on like a sweet little roller coaster ride of like your most present anxieties and all the worst things you've ever done to the people who loved you the most,
When you don't smoke weed for a little bit, like, it's crazy, like, you have feelings. Like, something will happen, and I'll be like, hey, I don't like that. As opposed to, like, 7 years of just being like, it is what it is. Swag, or whatever. I think I smoke weed subconsciously, like, I don't even know I'm doing it. I'm serious. Like, I think I smoke weed, so, like, if I fail, in my head, I'll be like, well, I was high, so what did you expect? You know what I mean? But if I accomplish something, I'll be like, and I was fucking high! Woo! So it's like this, I always win in my head.
Does anybody here smoke weed? Yeah. All right. Well, in California, it is really easy to get your medical marijuana card.
I just got mine. For insomnia and depression, yeah. I didn't know you weren't supposed to put real things, so.
You can basically have any ailment and qualify for your weed card.
So we wrote a song about how easy it is.
Yep.
Everyone knows marijuana's dangerous and medical pot is really strong.
That's why it's so hard in California to get your weed card unless something's really wrong.
Gonna pay a visit to my doctor. It's a long shot, but I gotta try.
She hands me a list of all the ailments I can have to qualify.
Can't believe what I am reading. This is just what I've been needing. A government supply to get legally high. Weed card, that's what I need. Hardly ever okay, always. But it's not an addiction, cause my doctor gave me a prescription. You can get your card for having headaches, bad dreams, or anxiety.
Propensity for drugs or alcohol, anorexia or obesity.
Too fat, too thin.
Either way you win.
Carpal tunnel syndrome, color blindness, and stuttering, tooth decay,
Fatigue, depression, motion sickness, impotence, or TMJ.
You can smoke to quit cigarettes for asthma or your Tourette's. It's a dream come true. There's nothing pot can't do. Weed card, that's what I need. Hardly ever okay, always. But it's not an addiction, cause my doctor gave me a prescription. I break it down now. Got back pain, need Mary Jane. Can't handle this, need cannabis. Got a stomach ache, gotta wake and bake. Have an injury, need THC. Get messed up for your hyperhidrosis, which is sweaty palms in case you need a diagnosis. It's not a crime, it's 420 time. Weed card, that's what I need. Hardly ever okay, always. But it's not an addiction, cause my doctor gave me a prescription.
Thanks, guys.
Do you have any pot smokers here at all? Jeez, was this a group outing? My God. I have a theory. I don't smoke weed. I have a theory. If your life sucks, don't smoke weed. Because when I was in college, I got high one time. And when I got high, everything slowed down. The last thing you need when your life sucks is to put that sucker in slow motion. So when you're sober and you're unemployed, you're unemployed. But when you're high and you're unemployed, you are unemployed. I say if your life sucks, drink, because if you drink, you might black out, and that's like a fast forward button. That's what you want. I like when I drink and black out, because the next day, I always feel like I'm in my own CSI episode, Looking for clues everywhere I go. Like, what the? It's Taco Bell. Mountain Dew. Who the hell is that?
But look, if I teach you anything here, and I hope I'm teaching you a lot, it's live your life, Like a lot of people, I smoke pot a lot, and, people are like, why? It's like, I like being confused, I like not knowing how long I've been standing somewhere. You know, like being like, how long have I been standing in line at this grocery store? How long has my arm been like that? When should I blink? Now? Blink now? Blink now? Blink now? Blink now? Shrug for no reason? Blink now? Blink now? Back away? Don't buy anything? I like to get mad when I'm drunk and high and say things that don't make sense, and then get mad at people for not understanding. Like I went to this small drive-through chain in LA called Burger King. I was a little bit high, I was a little bit drunk, and I just said what I wanted, and it came out as, I want a burger with everything. And they understandably went, what does that mean? And I was like, everything? And they're like, what's everything? And I'm like, point to things! And put them on my burger, you know? And they were like, lettuce? I'm like, yes, lettuce. They're like, tomatoes? I'm like, yes, tomatoes. They're like, French fries? I'm like, shut up, you could do that? Does your manager know? I was like, yeah, I'll take that. And then I got past the part where you order and before you pay and realized I forgot money. So I just drove off the line, rolled down my window and yelled, I have no money! And kept driving. In a 2002 Saturn. They don't know who I am. To them, I'm just a guy bragging about having no money.
On weed, I've tried to smoke. I'm not good. I don't know the law for real. Like I live in LA, and it's in that gray area. It's cloudy. You know, nobody, because you can be high, but they can't watch you get high, and you can have some, but you gotta keep your hand closed. Nobody knows what I'm saying. Nobody knows. What's in your hand? I ain't telling. I tried. Like, I'm not comfortable with it. I don't know who I am. Like, I get paranoid, and so I was like, you know, but I do want to like get better at it because like it's cheaper. It's just way cheaper than drinking. And I was like, I asked my boy who has like a card, you know, go to the dispensary, grab, you know, however much, and I was like, hey, give me some, and I gave him like $20, and he put some in my hand. I don't even know if it's the right amount because I don't know drug math. He put some in my hand. I was like, yeah, that's right. That's about right. And so he's like, just go home and just like, you know, watch a movie and just relax, man. Just, you know, veg out, relax. I'm like, all right, cool. So I get a little pipe. I'm at home, 20 minutes in. I am high. I'm watching Hunger Games. Man, let me tell you something. That is a different movie when you high, okay? Oh my God, District 12 was going through it. And then when they killed Rue, not you too, Rue. It was, oh man. I was like, if you haven't seen the movie, they killed a little black girl. Just say it. It's like, oh. But I'm on the couch, and I haven't even tried to smoke since like college. And so like I didn't know what was gonna happen. The symptoms start, my tongue just, let me tell you something. My tongue just disappeared. Mouth dry, my tongue disappeared, okay? And my mind is like, you should go to the kitchen and get some water. I'm like, that is a good idea, mind. And so I get up, and immediately my knees like, we done too. And so now I'm saying, and for some reason, both of my hands are in my pockets. I got both hands in my pockets. My knees are locked, my mouth is dry. My mind's like, go to the kitchen. I was like, I'm on my way. And I was like, and now let me tell you, your shoulder should never hit the floor first, okay? Not when you got two good hands for bracing, all right? Because you can't explain that bruise later. People are like, how did you hurt your shoulder? You like, I was smoking weed. So I had a little bit left. I was like, maybe, you know, I'm gonna just try it again just because I'm about these deals and they save this money. And so, you know, I got my water and I put it on the coffee table and now I'm you know, laying out pillows. And my neighbor's like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm getting ready to smoke weed. How do you prepare?
I had to quit smoking weed recently. So sad, I know. The worst part is I still want to hang out with the stoners. I still identify with stoner culture. Just because weed gives me panic attacks sometimes now doesn't mean that I'm not still passionate about sitting down. I may not be high all the time anymore, but I'm still gonna find a way to work aliens into the conversation. It's gonna come up. I don't care if we're at your baby shower. I've got theories. I may not be waking and baking before work these days, but I'm still gonna do a really bad job. At least I'm consistent. I feel like I'm more irritable since quitting weed. Everything annoys me now. Like, I hate when people ask me what my tattoos mean, like I'm supposed to know. That just gives me way too much credit. Trust me, the only thing that any of my tattoos mean is that one time I had $80. That is it, I promise you. I'm not a deep thinker. I got one brain cell left and she's bounced around my skull like an air hockey puck. Like the DVD buffering logo. It is peaceful up here. Got a nice breeze going on.
Nobody likes to admit their mistakes, man. Nobody. Then we find all these Enron guys, all these CEOs robbing everybody blind, man. I tell you, that stock market, boy. That's why I got out. I got out the market. I called my broker. I was like, hey, put all my money in weed. Price of weed never goes down. That's a real blue chip right there.
Like to smoke weed. Can't smoke with everybody. I choose who I'm gonna smoke with based on what kind of snacks you're gonna have when we get high. I got this white friend named Timmy. Had to put him in the Hall of Fame. First time we smoked together, he pulled out some Lunchables. Messed me up, because I didn't even know you could eat Lunchables at home. I thought you had to be in school to eat Lunchables.
And see, I'm a stoner. That's why I went to jail. Because the signs were there. They had my house under observation for a year. They had my phone tapped. They had a helicopter going over my house. They had undercover FBI guys or DEA guys riding up on their bicycles. And you could tell that, they didn't look like bike riders. They're bike riders got a look. They know how to act. These guys are, had to jump off the bike to stop it, And then they're all gathered up in front of my house, and they're looking in there, and I'm in there making bongs. That's what I do. And they're smoking pot, and they called me over one time and said, what kind of plants are those? Bamboo. He said, oh, that's interesting. So what are you making in there? I said, bongs. Oh, interesting. And then a few months later, they came knocking on my door in SWAT outfits. 5 a.m, man. Knocked on the door. We'd been partying, so I was sleeping. I was dead to the world. My wife woke up. She's someone banging at the door. So I went down there. I looked. We got glass doors, and they're always open. We never locked the doors because you can never find the key, So the doors are always open, and here are these guys in their SWAT outfits and their helmets, and they got their guns and everything. And being a stoner, I wasn't the least bit afraid. I wasn't scared. I wasn't doing nothing. I'm not a dope dealer or escaped criminal or anything like that. And so I'm looking at these guys. They're looking at me. They look like trick-or-treaters. I'd be all saying, "That's a nice costume, Sonny." But I opened the door and they come busting in and they said, we have a warrant to search your house and take your computers and shit like that. And so I'm looking at it. They're running around, crazy. I'm in my little Speedos. It was kind of embarrassing because guys in the morning, we get a morning hard on. It doesn't mean nothing. It's just nature, right? But so I'm there with my morning hard on in my Speedos. And I forgot I had Speedos on. I forgot I had clothes on because now I got a warrant. Oh, fuck, they're arrested. What? What is this? I couldn't figure out what what they're doing. Then they come up and they said, Mr. Chong, do you have any marijuana in the house? And I said, yeah. Where is it? And he says, every room in the house. He said, can you be more specific? There's some in my shop downstairs. It's a nice bud, Hawaiian. Beautiful. Just got it. So he sends a guy down there, and he comes back a few minutes later. I can't find it, sir. I said, what kind of fucking DEA guys are you, man? Then he got defensive. He goes, we don't have our dogs. I said, that's another thing. How come you don't have your dogs? What the hell? Then my wife comes down the stairs. And she thought it was, she was going to be on television. She thought it was, we're being punked by Ashton Kutcher. So she's sitting down there, all looking good, you know, looking for the camera. And I had to tell her, we're being busted. She goes, well, for what? I said, I don't know. And so I asked him, and they said, paraphernalia. What's that? Bongs. Oh, fuck. You're busting me for bongs? Really? Apparently, there's one state in the union that made paraphernalia legal to ship across the state line, which is Pennsylvania, the home of the DEA. And apparently the DEA has been trying to get my company, my son's company, to sell him bongs. And they kept refusing to sell it to him because we knew that they were DEA, or at least my son's company did. I didn't know. And so anyway, they finally came to LA in person, bought the bongs, and then they said, listen, we're going to go on vacation here. Will you ship the bongs to us? We still wouldn't do it, so they had an undercover guy go in and get a job in my son's company, and he shipped it. He shipped it. Because it's all documented. It's all filmed, everything. We had all the documentation. And then they've been following me for a year. And I was in Arlington, Texas one time, and they got the DEA camera on me. And it shows the workers in the head shop all wearing DEA T-shirts. And they kept standing next to the DEA officers. Wherever they go, they stand next to them. I still didn't catch on. They're wearing headbands that didn't fit. I remember them because they said to me, Mr. Chong, can we talk to you outside? No, they're hippies. No. I said, sure. Go outside, we're sitting there, and he's got his backpack and the camera, and he's got it round so he can see me. And then he said, now these bongs, they're not just for tobacco use only, are they? And I said, no. I said, they're for pot. He said, can you repeat that? I said, yeah, they're for marijuana, pot. Thank you. I still didn't know. See, because when you don't do anything wrong, you got to be honest, you know. Yes, they are. So I go to court, and I think, well, fuck, I'll bust this, you know, because he can't bust you for bongs, you know. And I go to court, and then they sentence me on 9/11. 9/11. And that's when I started waking up. Hey, just a minute now. Why that date? And then Bush went on TV and said that, you know, the bong industry has been supplying money to the terrorist organizations in the tune of billions of dollars. And I'm thinking, well, fuck, I wish I had got some of that money. Because we were in debt for $500,000 at the time, you know, trying to keep the bong business going. So they sentenced me to 9 months. And I tried to, you know, talk my way out of it. But again, the stoners, man. Oh. I tried to explain to the judge that I'm really sorry and that I've been working with kids, you know, trying to, you know, keep them off drugs. Well, I've been teaching kids salsa. And the judge kind of looked down over his glasses. You know, the judges with no rims on their glasses, you know that look? And they look over at you. And he says, salsa? And I said, yeah, well, and this is my theory, you know, when you're dancing salsa, you can't get high and dance at the same time. So, which in itself is a lie, because I can get high and dance salsa. But I was trying, you know, I was giving it a shot. And then I started thinking about it. Fuck, you know, I've never been to jail. It's kind of fun, man. And I've been prepping for this, all my life. Because when I was a teenager, 15 years old, I met this biker that he just got out of jail, no place to stay. And I said, yeah, you can stay with me for a while. So he moved in, and he gave me a biker, my OG tattoo. This is a jailhouse tattoo. Now, I was really proud of this until I found out in jail it's a white supremacy tattoo. Because the biker that gave it to me, he only knew 2 tattoos, and this was one of them. But I was going to get it changed, and my son said, "No, Dad, that's antique. Don't fuck with that, man. That's classic." Next thing you know, I'm in the fucking jail. And I had one bad half hour. That was when I went in, because I was treated like a celebrity. Vanity Fair sent a limousine to take me to prison. I walk in, they handcuff me, and just formality. And they apologize. "I'm sorry, Mr. Chong, but we have to handcuff you. It's just a formality." And I walk in the door, and I got on cuffed. That was the last time I had any handcuffs on. And then I went into the dormitory where I was going to be living, and this guy met me. He took me to his locker and opened his locker. He says, "Anything you want, man. Welcome to the Unit B." And it was a trip, man. Jail. I'd like to go back to visit, but